Okay, I think we can start now. I'm sure our colleagues and friends would keep joining as we proceed on the symposium. Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome again to this international symposium. And it's an absolute pleasure to have different partners and guests from different African countries join this session that aims to highlight the new online program called Stimulating Entrepreneurial Thinking in Scientists, and that is set. I think I'll just give a bit of an intro into the session, and then we can proceed with different guest speakers and some interesting interaction. Just to let you know, as we proceed, if you've got any questions for any of the speakers or presenters or panelists, you don't really have to wait till we end the session. You could just drop your question in the chat section and we'll pick it up and direct it to who it's due. So just so you know. And also, please, once you are on the call, try and mute your microphones and you'll be given allowance to speak when it's time for some interaction, just so we can maintain some good silence as we are currently recording this session, just so you know. If you've got any queries with respect to recording this session, please inform the folks on the call who are managing the logistics. Okay, so my name is Akanimo Odon, and I'll be your moderator today. As an intro, so in an era where the identification of long-term solutions to sustainable development, obviously, and climate change challenges across the world is very crucial. There is an important place for research and innovation, especially towards developing homegrown solutions in Africa. And Africa is in dire need of that right now. And one of the aspirations of the Africa's Agenda 2063 is to reposition Africa in its growth and sustainable development pathway. And this obviously requires that Africans make substantial investment in education with a core goal of developing human and social capital through the application of science, technology, and innovation. Now, despite Africa creating very interesting and positive economic growth in the last decade, it finds itself at the bottom of major indices that define STI capabilities of the continent. And this has been shown in different reports. And Africa produces just about 1.1% of the world's scientific knowledge, which obviously includes publications and other contributions. But this is despite Africa comprising 12.5% of the world's population. There's a big disconnect there. Now, a critical gap exists between academic research and industry in many African countries. And there are strategies and policies that can drive knowledge exchange, which are very, very vital for sustainable development. But the trouble is most African academics and researchers know the term publish or perish. I mean, it's a very known term, which describes the use or describes the fact that research in Africa is mostly driven from a publish to be promoted basis as against from a publish for impact basis. Now, while both bases should function together, the challenges that makes researching to answer real practical questions or problems in Africa remains difficult and in some cases almost untenable. Now, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Zambia, as it is in most African countries, STI-inclined research institutions depend wholly on the federal government, who in some sense now struggle to fund them. They don't engage with private sector or industry partners who potentially can support and fund them. When there's MOUs in place, memorandums of understanding, when they exist and they can probably even attract funding if well operationalized, they kind of gather dust on the shelves. Solution-driven research, even when problems abound, is almost an afterthought. Access to international funding to good entrepreneurial ecosystems is a struggle. And even when you apply for funding, there is very poor proposals that are not commercially viable because grantmanship in some sense is deficient. Now, entrepreneurial opportunities generated by higher education have presented very unique opportunities in the business world, and increasingly so for globalization, entrepreneurship, and leveraging the application of innovation can introduce new processes, new services, new products into the market. And universities and research organizations are at the fulcrum of making this happen. And so, against this backdrop, the Lancaster University applied for a British Council-funded grant, and we won the grant. And together with our African partners, 5 key partners: University of Benin, Nigeria, Igbinedion University in Nigeria, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in Ghana, Lancaster University Ghana campus, and Kenyatta University in Kenya. Together, we've co-designed and co-developed a toolkit, a toolkit that would help to stimulate entrepreneurial thinking in scientists. And the essence of the symposium today is to highlight this toolkit, share some results from our project, and also to engage partners and institutions with respect to the potential opportunities for program uptake, expansion, and further engagement. And on that note, I would like to start the webinar by introducing the principal investigator on the project, who is a professor of environmental biology with nearly 30 years of experience in research. His main fields of research include understanding fundamental processes in organic contaminants in soils, and he has been awarded several research grants and funding from different funding bodies. And obviously, this one is from the British Council. He is the director for the RECIRCULATE project and the ACTUATE project, on which this symposium has been based. And it gives me the absolute pleasure to welcome Professor Keksempo to give us a welcome address. Over to you, Prof.
Thanks very much, Akan, and thanks for delivering such an eloquent introduction to the situation and the project. So my job really is to introduce in a bit more detail, perhaps, some of the thinking that underpins this project and the direction that we want to go in. So I'm just going to share my screen. So can you see that, Akan?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and it's on presentation mode now.
Beautiful. Let's go.
Okay, wonderful. So thanks very much, Akan. So yeah, I'd just like to correct you, Akan. I'm a professor of environmental microbiology. Okay, of course, which you should know anyway. Never mind. So welcome everyone. It's a real pleasure to have you on the call. As I said before, Akan said before, my name is Keksempo. I'm a professor of environmental microbiology. I work on a number of projects with international context. This one, of course, funded by the British Council, but also GCRF funded projects of RECIRCULATE and ACTUATE. But I also am heavily involved in international activities for my department, my faculty, and of course for the wider university as well. And so, yes, this project was funded under the Digital University Africa programme, and our title is Applying the Power of Co-Design to Stimulate Entrepreneurial Thinking in Scientists. So before I go any further, I'd obviously like to introduce the team. So we've got a number of colleagues at Lancaster from different faculties and different disciplines. So there's Joanne Larty, Dr. Emmanuel Ruth Alcock, and of course our pilot, the good Dr. Akan Odon, who's also our strategic advisor for Africa. And then partners in Nigeria, of course, a good friend and colleague, Professor Lawrence Ezemonye from Igbinedion University, Dr. Spencer Nwangwu from the University of Benin in Nigeria, of course. Chris and Nosa, and then from Ghana we have our own campus there, Dr. Cynthia Forson and Anthony, and then at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research we have Prof. Mary Obodai, and then finally, of course, last but not least, of course, Kenyatta University and Prof. Carolyn Taruwa and Dr. Mary Nwangwu as well. So it's clearly a very international project. It's also quite a multidisciplinary project as well, which is very, very exciting. And really, from my perspective, this is born out of this idea of the circular economy, or the green economy, or whatever you would like to call it, where we are looking to reduce or remove waste into the environment or exposure to humans wherever possible. So in this scenario, what we're doing is, instead of throwing away waste, we're adding value to it, we're collecting it, and we're using it as feedstocks to produce sustainable forms of energy. So we're moving away from petroleum hydrocarbons to producing biogas from the processing of these organic wastes to produce energy in the form of light, heat, cooling, etc. And of course, as with any process, it produces its own waste. Okay, and of course, instead of throwing that away, we think about the value of that waste from the bioenergy process. And of course, what we know is that digestate, that waste, is actually could be an important source of irrigation for growing plants and a source of fertilizing nutrients to help plants grow, particularly in the agricultural sector. So from there, we then move into sustainable food production and the value of this waste material to help us produce food, to help us reduce the usage of conventional inorganic fertilizers, which the production, of course, is very energy intensive and environmentally damaging. But of course, also, as with bioenergy processes, agriculture produces its own waste. And of course, that can then feed back into the loop. So we have what I would term a true example of a virtuous circular economy. So with that in mind, RECIRCULATE was born, where this is a GCRF funded project, Global Challenges Research Fund project, funded by the British government to the tune of around £7 million. We call it RECIRCULATE, but its real title is Driving Eco Innovation in Africa, Capacity Building for a Safe Circular Water Economy. And this project addresses a number of UN Sustainable Development Goals, but crucially involves research and capacity building partnerships with partners in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana. Okay, so it is genuinely international, it's genuinely multidisciplinary, and it doesn't just focus on research, but it also focuses on capacity building and education and training as well. So basically, when you look at the RECIRCULATE project in its simplest way, we have these different areas of activity that I've already mentioned. So water for sanitation, so we're taking waste, we're using that to produce energy, so water for energy. And then from there, it's water for food, where we're taking the waste from the energy processes to support food production. That has big impacts on human health in terms of benefits, in terms of nutrition, but also removal of waste, which can cause disease as well. Obviously, it's a big project, it's an important project, it's multidisciplinary, multi-partner, and it's important that we shout about it. So an important element of this project, of course, and projects similar to it, are how we engage and share the knowledge that comes from this project and others, but also thinking about the longevity, the rollout of the learning from RECIRCULATE, and through that, working with entrepreneurial and innovation researchers and working with business communities, we hope to be able to extend the lifetime of the activities of this project beyond the funding of the project. And of course, at the heart of this is collaboration. I think I've already sort of communicated that anyway. What we're doing really is working, hopefully, I believe, in an equitable way with researchers and academics in the university and research sector, but also with the private sector, with government and policy, but also with the civil society and the communities that will benefit from this work. And of course, this fits very, very nicely into the ethos that underpins this British Council funded project. So I think it's important to say that we have all been affected by COVID-19 in one way or another. Some of it has been very personal, some of it has been tragic, but it's also affected the way that we work and are planning for the future. And as project lead for RECIRCULATE and ACTUATE, I was very worried when COVID landed that how that would impact upon these projects. Not only in terms of the research that we were planning to do, but also in terms of the capacity building elements as well. And you know, our activities around capacity building were around face-to-face workshops and developing stakeholder networks from those workshops. And of course, my big worry was that this fantastic network of stakeholders that we'd gathered together through these projects would actually lose cohesion, and it would dissolve away because people had other things to worry about. They had other pressures in life arising from COVID. And that really did require a lot of discussion and out-of-the-box thinking from partners on these projects. And it was very positive, actually. And that sort of mirrored my university's strategic thinking around COVID, and in particular in the digital space. And digital engagement, digital teaching is now a core element of Lancaster University's forward-looking strategy. So in line with that, coming back to the project or the projects, we were thinking, well, how can we work with partners? How can we work with our stakeholder networks? So we developed a Participate program, which some of you will be very, very familiar with. But we were also thinking about digital capacity. There was a lot of learning, a lot of training that had been developed across the project before COVID. And we were keen that we could, you know, begin to think about how we could translate that from a face-to-face to a digital, online, or even a blended approach. So this really stimulated the thinking around the entrepreneurial training for scientists to this online or at least blended model. And you know, the idea, of course, was to get academic researchers to think differently, to think outside of the box, and how that would link to challenges that society faces. It also was intended to help academic researchers to build entrepreneurial ecosystems around the things that they're interested in and were working on anyway. It enabled researchers to be creative around the resources that were at their disposal and how to maximize and communicate their findings to end users, stakeholders, and of course the wider society. Of course, and it involves a change in thinking in the narrative within research communities for focusing on publication, publish or perish, as Akan's already mentioned, to something that was much more powerful, much more useful, much more impactful beyond that sort of really quite sort of, I use this word carefully, selfish approach to publication. And of course, embracing online and digital opportunities is absolutely crucial. It's absolutely at the heart of this. And from that, of course, the British Council released the Digital University Africa programme, which came at the right time for our thinking. And here we are today. You know, we've been working very, very hard on this for several months now. The symposium represents a major milestone in the project, and it allows us to share the experiences of the team with the audience in the webinar, and we've assembled a really very powerful set of speakers and contributors who have, you know, been absolutely crucial to the development of this this program. So that's all I really want to say. I hope you really enjoy it. Don't be afraid to ask questions in the chat, as Akan has mentioned. And of course, obviously, after the webinar, you know, we can still continue to communicate and respond to questions and queries as well. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand back to Akan.
Thank you very much, boss. Fantastic. So,
and I'll unshare my screen.
The question actually is, what is entrepreneurship? And entrepreneurship really means many things to many people. I know we'll come to that. But I think it's very important we give audience to our funder. There is obviously a reason why the British Council decided to fund this program. And I think there's only one person that can actually give the room a sense of what that reason is. So it gives me absolute pleasure to invite the Senior Higher Education Advisor at the Education Policy Unit of the British Council, Liz Dempsey, to give us an overview of the Digital University Africa program. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Akan. Can everybody hear me okay, yes?
Very, very clearly, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I did have a few slides for today. I wonder if, are they available, or would you just like me to talk?
I think Kek can share your slides.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, first of all, just good morning to everybody, and thank you very much to Lancaster for putting on this event, and also to give me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the Digital University in Africa project. There's my slides. So I've only got a few slides that I wanted to talk to today, but just to give it a little bit of structure, and also if you wanted to, I'm sure these will be accessible to you at the end of this particular event today. So just a few words about our project. And we started this project in the autumn of last year, and what we're looking to do, if we could move to the next slide, please. What we're looking to do with this particular project is to try and make a contribution to help increase knowledge and understanding of what digital and digitalization of the university actually means, and what are the implications. So there's lots of things that we don't know about digitalization of the university, but there's also, we have learned an awful lot over the last 12 months as universities and academic institutions around the world about how you do embed digital technologies into the university. So we had an approach that we're looking at. Everything has to come down to partnership, and this is exactly what Professor Semple has been saying this morning, as well as Akan, that this is all about partnership. It's about context. And whilst everybody around the world has been adjusting to delivering programs and initiatives through digital means, context is everything. And context really does change. It changes understanding. It makes it, there are cultural sensitivities to everything. And so we have to do everything in partnership. And we have a series of north-south partnerships and south-south partnerships in here. We've also commissioned a series of really quite in-depth meta-analysis of the situation of digital uptake across Africa. Through very simplistically, we've been looking at 4 countries as the British Council, because that's where we have our locations, our country offices in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa and Kenya. So we've been focusing our attention in those countries. And what we want to do, and again, this is a point that's been very well made already this morning, that this is about how do we sustain this? How do we, where's the longevity in here? Because what we would like to do is we'd like to help to build a community of practice moving forward with the knowledge and understanding that we're creating with this project. And also how we share that learning whether it's with policymakers, with decision makers, with academics, and also with students, because there's a lot of information that we've been working on. So if you can have a look at the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is all about shared experiences, and the one thing that the pandemic has actually done in its most benign form is it's made us really think about digital. And this is an area that we think is going to be, in whatever shape or form, digitalization of content, whether it's digital pedagogic skills that academics require, whether it's policies that governments are going to need to formulate in order to be able to facilitate digital and online learning, then this is an area that can only grow over the coming months and years. But how we choose to make that growth happen is really important. And this is where our project, I think, really helps to contribute to those messages, because it's about learning from our experiences already. If we can have a look at the next slide, please. And so what we decided to do was we decided to fund a number of projects, and these are a series of action research projects. It's all about participation. It's all about the reality of what's happening out there. And we've been supporting 7 projects with the British Council in the 4 countries that I mentioned. And one of these was the Lancaster University project, in partnership with all of the partners that have been named already this morning. So the Lancaster project for us it really did hit all the right marks for us, because it's about collaboration. It's about the situation. It's about what we know within the universities already. And it's also about sharing that learning. So whatever's been happening in Lancaster University, there's been a different approach in universities in Ghana, in Nigeria, etc. So there's a lot of shared learning, but different learning. And that's why we really did want to support the Lancaster project, because it was in such an exciting area of content development. What I will do is I won't go through my next 2 slides, but as I said before, I will leave these slides with you so that you can have a look. So if you could just skip very quickly to the next 2 slides, please. And these are the projects that we have been supporting. So we're supporting projects in content development, which is the Lancaster project. We've been supporting projects in academic and pedagogic skills. And the final slide talks about projects in policy and strategy areas. So our projects are quite short. They're they're very specific projects, and they're quite niche projects. But what we're hoping that we will be able to have at the end of these projects, when they all complete, which will be over the coming months in June and July, we will have a body of knowledge that universities in Africa will be able to dip into, to be able to see what experiences and what processes have been put in place and what people have learned from the shift to digital. So we're hoping that you'll be able to access all of these resources in the coming months. So please do check back not only to the Lancaster websites, but also to British Council websites. The final slide has my contact details on the end of it. So if you would like to hear a little bit more about the other projects, I'd be very happy to talk those through, or to put you in contact with any of the other project leads. But thank you so much to Akan and Professor Semple for this morning, for this great webinar. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Liz. Absolute pleasure. It's really good. So I think just to move on, you might be surprised to know, as part of the project output, and for everybody listening to me, we actually have produced a promotional video. Can you believe it? Why not? And so I want to ask the guys in the logistics team to help just play a very short 3-4 minutes video that gives almost like an overview of what Liz has been speaking about, but also to give a sense of what the project has actually covered. Okay. Sustainable development in Africa is seeing a range of challenges which impacts on the environment, economic prosperity, the health and well-being of Africans. These challenges, however, provide huge opportunities to facilitate the co-design, co-development and co-delivery of sustainable initiatives and solutions which directly address the UN Sustainable Development Goals. One of such initiatives is the British Council-funded Applying the Power of Co-Design to Stimulate Entrepreneurial Thinking in Scientists, or SETS, under the Digital University Africa program. Are you an African academic, a researcher, or a scientist? Would you like to improve the real-world impact of your research? Do you need to deliver entrepreneurship education to your students? Would you like to increase your partnerships and enhance your resources to meet your research needs? The SETS online program, centered on a place-based entrepreneurship model, is the right program for you and your institution.
In the wake of the pandemic, the digitization of higher education has the potential to transform and disrupt the status quo. Participation in this online program, aimed at stimulating entrepreneurial thinking in African scientists, will provide solution-focused tools and techniques driven by partnerships to meet society's challenges and opportunities.
Co-designed by Lancaster University and its African partners, the University of Benin and Igbinedion University, both in Nigeria, Lancaster University, Ghana, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Ghana, and Kenyatta University in Kenya.
Entrepreneurial thinking is not just about starting a business. It's about making a positive impact within your institution, your region, and your local community. For this impact to be sustained, this programme highlights that it must be place-based within the local context, co-designed and co-developed with others, and aimed towards building a legacy. The SETS online programme is unique and focuses on 5 key activities: understanding the foundations of entrepreneurial thinking, identifying opportunities, building connections, sharing knowledge, and celebrating success.
Many African universities and research institutes do not commonly nurture private sector connections to provide solution-driven research.
Universities across Africa working with businesses will be key drivers of eco-innovation. This is why the Center for Global Eco-Innovation was established at the University of Benin in partnership with Lancaster University.
As a university working in partnership with government, businesses, and civil society, we are able to create innovation ecosystems. Research is able to move beyond the publication of papers as outputs and into the creation of impact in society. Our students play a vital role in this.
If you are an academic, a scientist, a researcher, join this co-developed, co-designed, and co-delivered online program centered on place-based learning and embrace the opportunities of a new entrepreneurial future. Thank you very much, Alan. And if you watch that video and you maybe want to watch it again, Alan will be dropping the link to see the video on YouTube on the chat section, so you can pick up the link and watch it again. But I think most importantly is the fact that it's an opening of partnerships, and to ask folks in the room, if you're in university or your organization is wanting to work with us and to use this toolkit we've spent time developing, is funded by the British Council, to develop an entrepreneurial program for your university, the opportunity is here. Now, to go into more details with respect to what the program is, I will be inviting two folks who would play more like a double act to describe an overview of the project results, but also give us a sense of entry points of partnerships. Like I said earlier, entrepreneurship is a big topic. What does it even mean? Is it about starting your own business? And I mean, for an academic in the university working full time, that will be pretty difficult. So what is entrepreneurship? So, but I want to invite N-Yelkabong, who is a research and engagement officer, manages the integrated research project of Stimulating Entrepreneurial Thinking in Africa. He holds a master's philosophy in environment and resource management in integrated development studies. And also Dr. John Latte, who is a senior lecturer at the Lancaster University Management School and also a co-I on the RECIRCULATE project. She studies understanding the roles of places, communities in the entrepreneurial process. And together, they will give us an overview of the project results, but also give us a sense as how everyone on the call can engage on the project. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akan. I'm so much happy to be here. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone here. As Akan mentioned, I'm N-Yelkabong, a research and engagement officer for an RRP, that's integrated research project called Stimulating Entrepreneurial Thinking in Scientists. And this program was developed because of the gap between industry and academic, industry and research. And next please. And this came because there have been that kind of serious gap that we needed to develop policies and develop strategies to bridge this gap so that we'll be able to produce impact-driven researches in our universities, in our research institutions. As Akan and Kirk mentioned, our research institutions and universities much depend on the phrase publish or perish. But we have to look at something that is different from that, that is to publish and impact in society. We try to get solution-driven researches that can actually come in to support the industries so that at least we'll be able to get our results implemented on the ground or making change in society. And this came as a co-development so that we'll be able to co-develop the toolkits, co-develop learning materials to be able to actually get our researchers and academics to be able to think entrepreneurial. We had the first face-to-face training in CSIR in Ghana, and it was very fantastic. So we decided to proceed with that in other partner institutions. But because of the COVID-19, we realized that most of the whole world is now going digital to be able to get a lot of folks to get to know digital education. So that is why we switched on to get this kind of digital platform or digital program called CES Online, which the British Council came in to support us. And this is to help us develop a flexible, place-based, collaborative learning, knowledge sharing platform that can help our industries, our researchers, and our universities. And with that, we decided to co-design, co-develop, so we can co-deliver everything that we have with our partner institutions. And we try to look at our participants to be able to get a very interactive platform, interactive toolkits, and then something that can engage everyone. We decided to go in for the people that we are dealing with, the people that we are targeting, to actually come out to support the call so that the project will be owned. Next please. The project will be owned by the partners, by the people that we actually looking at, because we are looking at the scientists, we are looking at the academics. So when they come in, they'll be able to help in making the change that we actually desire. And before we are able to get that, we actually design a research methodology. That is, we use a primary data and a secondary data. That's, we review literature, we review journals, and then other documents, policy briefs, to see what is already there and where is the gap. And then with the information that we got, we are able to blend that or try to work that with the information that we got from our participants, that's our partner institutions. We designed questionnaires that we were able to get 73 responses from our participants, from our scientists and our academics. And then we also organized 20 key informants interviews with institutional heads, with the departmental heads and other people that we think that they can help us in co-designing and co-creating this kind of toolkit that can be very much interactive and based on the context and then location. And then with that, we also have 4 focus group discussions with the institutions that were involved. And this was to help us to actually get what is on the ground, to help us in actually coming out with something that everyone would like and something that would be based on the needs of each of the institutions. Because we have a research institution, we have universities, and within the universities, we even have private university and government university. So we needed to know how each of these institutions are actually faring within their area of specialization. And then with this, we are selecting the participants. We asked the partner institutions to select 20 people, 20 scientists, 20 people within their various institutions to be part of this co-creation group. We call it the co-creation group because they all came in to help us with the knowledge that we actually put in place to develop this toolkit. Go, next please. Next please. And with the key findings, we categorize this key finding into 2. We have the institutional context and then the individual context. And within the institutional context, we were trying to find out what is actually the problem, what is preventing people from thinking entrepreneurial, what is the gap, or what is preventing people from thinking entrepreneurial. So we checked and saw that most of the people, most of the academics, most of the scientists are more concentrated on research. They try to do more research and more research. But we try to look at, okay, why not do the impact research? Because our universities and our research institutions, our mandate possibly may not be just to publish papers or impart only academic theoretical knowledge in people, but we also try to change society, try to make impact in our society. So we try to see, okay, if this is the gap, then we can develop this toolkit to fit in within that gap so that we'll be able to get scientists and academics to think entrepreneurial, to make change in society. And then we also saw that institutional support have been a bit limited in our various institutions. And that has been something that the structures that are put in place possibly are not helping our scientists to actually think outside the box. And then we also realized that the skills and the expertise in practical entrepreneurship is not so much embedded in our academic institutions and our research institutions, because our mandate is mostly focused on research, and we do research, and that is all. But we try to look at, okay, if we are looking at the resources that we have, we can say that the academics and the scientists actually have much resources, because every year we do a lot of researches and then we publish them, and possibly that may be, or as Akan mentioned, they'll be gathering dust in our shelves. But we actually can consider looking at this kind of resources that we are producing. We have the knowledge, and we have especially the universities. Every year we have master's students, PhD students, and undergrads producing a lot of research that we can depend on to actually move on. And we looked at what would be the benefit if we actually think entrepreneurial in our institutions. And we can see that, yes, if our institutions are actually thinking differently, trying to impact in society, they can be able to generate income, internal generated funds that can help them to be a bit independent of government subventions. Because especially the private institutions, we mostly depend on what government can help us, research grants and other sort of things that government or external bodies can help us with. But if we go outside the box, we'll be able to generate some kind of funds that can help our institutions to actually do other things that they may not even depend on government. But the good thing is that some of our institutions are actually having structures in place. Example is Igbinedion University, where they compel or they mandate every student, irrespective of the course of study, to undertake a skill before you graduate, whether it's in any of the fields of study. You have to do a skill, you have to acquire a particular skill before you graduate from the school. And if we are thinking about entrepreneurial thinking, at the end of it, we'll be able to produce students or graduates who will actually come out to be change makers and not depend on salary jobs, carrying files from office to office and then getting none. So we try to look at if institutions are able to do this, we'll be able to get students to come out to be job creators and not job seekers. And this will help us to change a lot of things in our society. Next, please. Next. And look on the institutional, the individual level, at the individual level, we also try to look at the barriers that are within the individual level that is preventing people from thinking entrepreneurial. And we saw that time constraint, because our academics are mostly looking at ways to deliver their lectures with their publications. Our research institutions are also looking at, they use much of their time in researching and doing other sort of research work. But if we think entrepreneurial, we'll be able to manage the little time that we have so that we can even save more time for other things. Because we focus so much on our academic work, our researches, we are not able to do a lot to impact the society. But if we actually try to go think about entrepreneurial, because we'll be able to get a bit of time, we'll manage our time and be able to move ahead. And then most of the academics always think that entrepreneurship is about huge money or huge fund that we can just carry millions of cedis or dollars onto it. But we can actually leverage on the little that we have. There, like I mentioned, we produce a lot of material knowledge. We can look at industries that we can even partner with. We can look at even the students that we are coming out with. Somebody is able to come out with a nice research work. You can partner with a person, then you can leverage on that kind of knowledge that we have to be able to actually produce something that can impact society. And then there's this kind of mindset of paid job. Everybody coming out from the university always think that, oh, I have to get a government job. I have to get something that I'll be paid monthly salary. And our researchers and our academics also think that, oh, so far as I'm employed and every month I get my pay, there's no need thinking otherwise. But I think it will be very refreshing. It will be very much encouraging if you see that your research work has actually impacted society. Your research work is able to produce something that you can look at and say, oh, wow, I was part of this change. You see, it will be very much interesting to be able to do that. When we do it, at least we'll be creating other kind of opportunities for people outside our jurisdiction, while also making our work moving on. And then with this, we have the studies made us to know that our researchers and our academics staff are now trying to think entrepreneurial so that they'll be able to use the knowledge they have to be entrepreneurs themselves. It can be any form of entrepreneurship, but like they are looking at how they can use this digital platform to think and act entrepreneurial. Okay, and also try to get take that avenue to integrate this kind of learning into their curriculum. And then there are platforms, or there are different ways that they think they can use to actually impact this. That is through seminars, through workshops, incubation labs, orientation, sensitization, and other sort of platform that they can use to actually drive this change. Thank you.
I think after that, Joanne will take over. Over to you, Joanne.
Yes.
Thank you, Akan. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony, for that. So what do we actually mean by thinking entrepreneurially? And I think what Anthony's gone through is that there's a huge desire across our partner institutions across Africa to really engage in thinking entrepreneurially. I think one of the problems is, yes, there are many challenges to doing that, institutionally, individually, in terms of commitment, but actually change is happening, and that's what's really positive to see how that change is happening and building on that desire. So in terms of thinking entrepreneurially, what do we actually mean? Three kind of key elements of thinking entrepreneurially are that we focus on practice. It's actually doing things and looking towards solutions. So rather than just focusing on problems and identifying problems, it's about how can we work towards solutions and making a positive impact within the communities that are important to us. It's about collaboration. So it's not about just focusing on the people that we know in our small circle, within our departments, within our faculties. It's reaching out, it's building collaboration with the communities, with policymakers, with people who can make a difference, and not trying to do things alone. It's trying to let's do things together, because we can make such a better impact if we do things together. And the final thing is it's about place-based thinking. So it's really focusing on our own projects as academics and scientists, or student projects, tailoring it to the actual needs of the communities and the communities that are important to us. So exactly as Liz talked about, it's about context and understanding context and doing things within the context. So one of the big challenges in terms of thinking entrepreneurially is how can we do this within an online environment? So that's a kind of big challenge that has been set in terms of co-design and co-development with our partner institutions. There's not just a challenge of entrepreneurial thinking, which is a challenge in itself, it's also how do we do that within an online environment. So what we've done in order to do this is come up with an overarching framework for how our partners can work in terms of thinking about entrepreneurship. So the heart of this is collaboration, but let me go around this diagram. So let's start with number one. So these are in terms of order, but it's also making sure we focus on that central thing, which is about collaboration. So number one, it's about creating inspiration within organizations, within your institutions, to engage in projects and in entrepreneurial thinking around your own roles as researchers and scientists, but providing foundational knowledge in terms of what entrepreneurial thinking is and how it works. But from that, it's then engaging in the practice element. So how do we engage in identifying opportunities within the communities that are important to us to act entrepreneurially, and act entrepreneurially within the projects and within the expertise that we've got. And it's also thinking big, but starting small. So it's engaging in practice. Extending, once we start to engage in practice, we realise that actually I need to understand this, I need to understand more different areas. So then it's extending that knowledge and understanding and building upon that knowledge all the time. And then obviously celebrating successes. You know, we need to celebrate the successes and learn from those successes. And this is where the collaboration in the middle comes through. So this is collaboration internally within organisations, but also importantly externally as well, and whether it's for dissemination, etc. So that's the kind of overarching framework for our SETS framework for entrepreneurial thinking. So how do we apply that within the online environment? So this is where the toolbox comes in. So we've produced a toolbox, and I think it's important to say that the toolbox gives a kind of introductory, some ideas for this, but this is it's a resource depository where we can add further resources as we learn, and within your institutions, and even share it between institutions. So this is ongoing, and it's really important then to contextualize this. How would this work for my institution, for my department, for my faculty. So it's really, really important then to think about how this can work in the online environment. So in terms of foundational knowledge, how could we organise online workshops? What would work for us to communicate ideas about entrepreneurial thinking and to inspire others? So, for example, partner institutions have run workshops, just giving case studies on what others have done in different areas of entrepreneurial thinking, from starting their own business to academic entrepreneurship to entrepreneurship within the curricula. It's about how do then, in terms of identifying opportunities and engaging participants in projects, in their own projects, how do we engage people in helping each other to shape those projects and helping with those projects? And how can we do that? How can we build an online environment to help there? And then extending that knowledge. So again, providing more workshops. How might that work? How can we engage external speakers to come and help us in this area? So again, just thinking about how this can work in the online environment. And obviously this learning and successes, how can we celebrate those successes? Do we have a web page somewhere? And do we have an online forum, quarterly forum? And again, so what works for the organisation? And then finally, just really thinking about developing that online collaborative environment. So how do we share? How do we share knowledge within our departments, within our faculties, within our institutions? How do we engage online with external actors? And then how do we disseminate our successes within the online environment? So really it's just going around that and then thinking about all the different areas and what works for our particular institution. So as I say, the toolbox has a set of resources within this and a set of ideas built with our partner institutions on how this might work. But again, it's very much for institutions to take away and think about how these big questions and how they might work for those organisations. So thank you very much for listening. So really throw it back to Akan, and I think it's time for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joanne. It's really good. So I'm just listening to you and Anthony. I mean, you've done an incredible job, really. And I think I picked up a few points I want to highlight quickly. So there's obviously a huge dependence on government, either for universities or research organizations. And ultimately, resource is limited continually. And even in the COVID era, institutions are beginning to discover that they have to think outside the box, think entrepreneurially. Then thinking for yourself entrepreneurially, but also because you're a lecturer and academic, how can you support the development of entrepreneurial thinking within your students? It's a different thing entirely. It might be easier for a professor of business or entrepreneurship at the business school of an African university to teach entrepreneurship. But how about a professor of chemistry? Does that make sense? I mean, ultimately, they are engaging with students in chemistry all the time. How can they support those students? Is that even a necessity? So basically, what we've done is working with our African partners is develop a toolkit where partners, or you could say toolkit, you could say toolbox, where partner institutions can take this toolkit and refine it, adapt it to their own situations or scenarios, but ultimately is to support the development of entrepreneurial thinking in scientists. So if there are any questions, please, you could drop your questions on the chat section. I'll pick them up. But while those questions come through, what I want to do is maybe ask folks in the room a question to get a sense of the room. And after this session, we're going to move into a series of very eminent and powerful panelists who have their individual views around what the toolkit does or can do. And then we can progress from there. So I think while you ask your questions, or you could raise up your hand, I'll call on you. I think I want to engage everybody in the room through what a simple Mentimeter session while questions come through. So Alan, could you load it up, please? Thank you. Now, so if you look at the chat section, you see a link. So if you click on that link, it will open up a series of questions where folks can actually engage with. So if you look at the chat section, there is a link. So you click on that link, there should be a series of questions where you engage with, okay? And I think we can watch the responses of folks in the room live on the call. The first question is, in your view, who do you think can effectively lead in the promotion of entrepreneurial thinking? What's your view? Who do you think can lead in that? Is it the government? Is it the institutional heads? Is it the individual scientists or academics? or civil societies? In your view, who do you think can lead in the promotion of entrepreneurial thinking? Please, can we keep voting? Okay. Who do you think can lead in the promotion of entrepreneurial thinking, in your view? Is it the government? Is it the institutional heads? Is it the individual scientists themselves? Or is it civil societies? What do you see interesting happening here? It feels like there is some kind of a focus on the internal environment to promote entrepreneurship, which I find quite interesting. So there is no pushing of blames on government or dependence on an external NGO to support entrepreneurial thinking. That folks in the room think that institutional heads, like maybe senior management of a university or research organization, can actually lead in the promotion of entrepreneurial thinking, or the researcher or academic themselves taking your own entrepreneurial, if you like, in quote, career bull by the horns, like grabbing it and moving on in your own space, is obviously seems like a preference, which I found very exciting. Uhunamure, Roland, I think I saw your hand raised up. Were you wanted to say something, please? Roland, I thought I saw your hands raised up. Yes? Were you wanting to make a comment? Okay, I'll come back to you. So I think we can probably go to the next question. I find it's very, very interesting. I think I'll be asking the panelists some reference to this, and maybe I'll throw it to Joanne. Joanne, what can you say about this chart you're seeing, in your view, Joanne?
Hi, Akan. In terms of the institutions, in terms of the first question, and I think it's important as well to kind of, even there's a kind of distinction between the institution individuals and institutional head, and maybe, you know, who is responsible? Is it passing it on to the heads of the institutions to kind of engage it, or is it the kind of scientists and academics themselves? And it's kind of one of those questions is, you know, is each other can always say it's each other, but maybe, you know, it's a selection of both. We need the government support. You need the institutional heads to support it, to encourage it, but it's the academics who can kind of say, you know, this is the way forward, this is what we need to do, and put pressure on the institutional heads. So it works both ways.
It's a really good point, because ultimately, I think from our project research so far, many scientists or academics want to be entrepreneurial, but they probably require a good, if you like, entrepreneurial environment for it to happen. And that would be easier if the institutional heads are actually driving the initiative, maybe given good encouragement, maybe good resources to get researchers and academics thinking entrepreneurially. I think it's fascinating. So I think we can move to the next question quickly, please, because I think we've got a few to get through. Okay, please, if you've got any questions, leave it on the chat. We can pick it up, please, and maybe address it to different panelists. So the second question is, what is most, in your view here, what is most important to effectively promote entrepreneurial thinking in scientists or academics? The training, the funding, the government policy, or personal interest? In your view, what do you think is the most effective way to promote entrepreneurial thinking in scientists or academics? This is very exciting, Joanne. It almost feels like there is a space for this online program, is what this graph is showing me. Fantastic. So please keep voting, and I think I will throw it back to Joanne and Tony to comment on this quick graph. Maybe, and if you have any questions or comments, please raise up your hand or just leave a comment on the chat, and I would pick it up. So I think there seems to be a preference. So go on, Joanne. A preference.
No, I was just going to say, this is very interesting, Akan, and this is training. So this is saying, okay, then, you know what, everybody on this call, we want to do this. We really want to do this. But how do we do it? It's just skills and knowledge. Tell me how I can do it. Send me on my way, and I'm happy to do it. So this is really positive. Really positive.
Powerful. It almost feels to me like I mean, you can want to think entrepreneurially, but obviously because it's a very diverse or wide or broad subject matter. How do I think entrepreneurially? Is it about funding? Is it about starting my own business? What is the process? And so I think what this graph is showing to us is actually the fact that there is need for capacity building. So I give kudos to the British Council for thinking through the project in the first place, to fund this project, because there is obviously a clear need to develop capacity and training in getting individual scientists or academics to think entrepreneurially. That's fantastic. So yes, next question, please. So we can move through this quickly. Next question, please. Okay, so this is a good question, very, very straightforward. Is being entrepreneurial only about starting a business? Yes or no? It's quite straightforward. Is being entrepreneurial only about starting a business? Yes or no? Keep voting, please. Let's see what people are thinking. Okay. That's interesting. I think from I would like to know, Kirk, could you come in here? In your view, I mean, have you started a business, Kirk, at all? But does it mean that you are not thinking entrepreneurially? What is your view, Kirk? Can you come in here, please?
Well, I mean, you know the answer to the question. I've never started my own business, but I think for me, I mean, I said no, because I think entrepreneurial is much more than just about thinking about starting a business. It's about being able to think outside the box, to take advantage of an opportunity that, you know, that you can respond to quickly. Some of it, of course, requires some strategic thinking as well, but it's a whole mixed bag of different things about taking advantage of a particular situation, whether it's in the very, very short term, medium term, or long term for me.
That's very, very interesting. So I'm just picking up some comments in the chat. So Uhunamure says, I'm a biomedical scientist in Nigeria. I'm more concerned about waste in my field as a medical scientist, as so much waste has been produced during the COVID pandemic from the health sector. How do we look at recycling biohazardous waste? So Uhunamure, if you could leave us a message, I think we will be happy to have a discussion with you, because we have actually been involved with a project around the management of waste. But I think it's interesting to see that being entrepreneurial is not only about starting a business. I can imagine it would be difficult anyway for an academic working full-time or a scientist working in an organization to start their own business. But the point is, your entrepreneurial thinking is about identifying a problem, getting an ecosystem, and also making change happen, which is what Joanne was referring to. Now, Ruth, if Ruth Alcock is on the call, I want to come back to you shortly, but with respect to the next question, can we go to the next question, please? So Akim says training is important, but change or inclusion of entrepreneurial modules in curricula is key. I like that, Akim. I think you're very, very correct. So inclusion of entrepreneurial modules in curricula is absolutely key. I think what's happening currently is the fact that you find a student doing chemistry, and then they have to leave chemistry department and go to a secluded place to go and learn entrepreneurship. The question is, might it be different if within the chemistry curricula, entrepreneurship educational modules are integrated? I think it might be different. It's what actually we're trying to refer to. Okay. So the question now is, should academics be able? It's a very important question, but maybe controversial even. Should academics be able to teach their students on entrepreneurship, no matter their areas of specialization? Any academics in the room? So I think the answer is saying yes. I was going to call Ruth. Is Ruth on the call, please? Should academics be able to teach their students on entrepreneurship matters?
Hello,
no matter. Yes, so Ruth. Okay. So Ruth, so what do you think about this? I mean, obviously, you in your case, you have been in research. You've been in industry, and now you are a knowledge transfer expert. What's your view on this?
I think, you know, this topic is totally subject agnostic. It should be, you know, any sort of academic should be able to think in different and creative ways. And I totally agree. And everybody else as well agrees on the call. So that's good. That's voting.
That's good to know. So whether you're a professor of microbiology like Kirk, you are a professor of ecotoxicology like Professor Lawrence Ezemoye on the call, and the average academic, all academics, I think, should be able to teach their students in one form or the other the elements of entrepreneurial thinking. And I think this is very important, because don't forget that most entrepreneurship centers in African institutions, and this is true, are situated in a separate location. You see, but the point is, most of the time, they don't have enough staff strength to take care of those numbers of students. And so they have, if you like, small numbers, but those actual lecturers who lecture the students or researchers who work with students are the ones who spend more contact time with students, teaching about their areas of specialty in chemistry and geology. But how about if they're able to pass on entrepreneurship knowledge to those students? I think it could be very, very powerful. That's fantastic. So it's good to see in the call that everybody thinks all academics, irrespective of your area of specialization, should be able to teach students on entrepreneurship. And this program, this online program, provides a basis for it. The last question, please. I think that's actually the last question. That's fantastic. So good. So at this point, we would like to move, just looking through the chat. So someone's asking, can every research be entrepreneurial? Joanne, do you want to go on that? Can every research be entrepreneurial? Isioma Tongo is asking.
No, Isioma, I think this is a really important question actually to ask. And I think this is something that we kind of need to ask ourselves as researchers. You know, I need to ask it about my research. It's a kind of big so what question. I'm doing this research and whatever it may be. The kind of big so what question is okay, I can do this research, but what impact is this going to have on the communities that is important to me? And then thinking about, okay, so how can I create that impact on those communities and not just get publications from it? That's the kind of big question.
So Professor Lawrence, you're the Vice Chancellor of Igbinedion University and a principal partner on this SET online program. I saw your hands raised up briefly. Any comments, sir? We need to unmute Lawrence. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Fantastic.
I would like to say, first of all, I would like to go back to the very first question. Every teacher, every academic can teach entrepreneurial program, motivationally or in practice. And that is one thing that justifies this digital toolkit that has been developed. And once the team have been trained, we have the trainer facility, and everybody will be given the opportunity to train the large number of students that we have available. Now to the second question, which has to do with the posture of Igbinedion University on entrepreneurial disposition. What will happen in the university at the moment is the Senate has approved, and is a mandatory program now, that every postgraduate thesis has an industry or community, an industry supervisor, and it is tailored towards solution-based thesis. And that's one way we have tried to inculcate the principles of community services and community effect in our thesis. In that way, it is also entrepreneurial, because by solving some of the community demands and industrial solutions, we meet the entrepreneurial disposition of the academics. So the thesis these days produced from Igbinedion University captures the essence of entrepreneurial thinking. That's my position.
That's fantastic. So Kek, I saw your hands raised up very briefly. Any comments, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with what Joanne and Prof Lawrence have said. I mean, it's very, very clear, and I understand that. But I think, from my perspective, I think, the academic environment is a very competitive place, okay? You're competing for resource, whether it's internal resource or external in terms of grant funding, whether it's, traditional research funding or, funding that supports interaction between academics and the private sector, whatever. In order to succeed, you have to be, in the broadest possible terms. It's a bit like, it's actually a bit like Joanne using the word ecosystem to the side. I mean, I'm using entrepreneurial in the broadest possible way. You need to be able to present yourself or what you're trying to do in a different way that, makes you more attractive or a little bit different to your competitors. And of course, that has to be included within that entrepreneurial thinking. That's all I wanted to say, really.
Thank you very much. I think that's absolutely powerful and really, really true. So I think we're going to move on now to hear our eminent, our incredible panelists on the call. So I want to do a quick introduction of the 5 of them, because I think I like to hear them, their perspective. And the interesting thing is that they are all from our partner institutions who helped in the co-design and development of this project, this online program. And so it gives me absolute pleasure, first and foremost, to introduce Professor Carolyn Taruwa, who is a professor of organic chemistry at Kenyatta University in Kenya. She holds a PhD in pharmacognosy from UCL School of Pharmacy. And she's a current director of the African Center for Transformational and Inclusive Leadership and the chairperson of the African Women in Science and Engineering, Carolyn Taruwa. Then also on the panelist is Dr. Emmanuel Arthur. Emmanuel Arthur is a senior lecturer on marketing at Lancaster University, Ghana. He holds a bachelor's degree in the University of Legon in Ghana, a postgraduate diploma in marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK, a postgraduate certificate in academic practice from Lancaster University in the UK, and an MA from Birmingham City University. He's a Chartered Institute of Marketing UK professional, and also an entrepreneur who operates in the Ghana SME space. Then also on the panel list is Mr. Nosa Uhunamure, who is also a lecturer at the Department of Entrepreneurship, University of Benin, and a support coordinator at the Center for Global Eco-Innovation at the University of Benin. Also on the panel is Dr. Spencer Nwangwu, who is the Director of Climate Change and SDGs at Igbinedion University in Nigeria. He's a lecturer at the Department of Chemistry, College of Natural and Applied Sciences at Igbinedion University. He's a Commonwealth Professional Fellow, and has been responsible in helping in the framing of this project at Igbinedion University. And finally is Dr. Charlotte Oduro-Yeboah, who is a senior research scientist, and she's attached to the Food Technology Research Division, and she has over 24 years experience in post-harvest management and food product development and enhancement. So you can actually bear me with that. These are very eminent researchers, academic scientists, and entrepreneurs. And so I want to ask everybody maybe the first question, and then we'll go around. So Emmanuel, I want to start with you. Emmanuel, you've been involved in the development of this SETS online program. So I think my first question is, which obviously will be the same question for everybody on the panel. In your view, why do you think flexible online framework or toolkit or a flexible online program of this nature that develops entrepreneurial thinking in scientists is important in your institution? Emmanuel, you go first. Yeah.
For me, for an academic of my nature, and particularly heading a business department, what happens is that I oversee 4 departments, and it's interesting: economics and international relations, business management studies, marketing, and then accounting and finance. And in looking at all of these diverse departments, one thing stands out, that it is possible, irrespective of your background, to have a certain entrepreneurial thinking, partly as academics ourselves, and also inculcate it in the students. So the question then that comes up is this: how do we get this inculcation into the students? It starts with we academics ourselves having a certain level of knowledge, and that's why this toolkit is so important. A simple framework that we can expand upon. You give it to anybody, he looks at it, and it's quite simple. And in simplified form, you can expand it into your specific areas of discipline. And I've tried it with my colleagues. It was amazing the diversities that came up from that discourse. And we looked at the same toolkit, the opinions were different, but ultimately you realize that people began to think entrepreneurially, and then how they can even inculcate it into their students. And that for me is the interesting part of the whole discussion and the toolkits that we're using.
Carolyn, let me come to you. In your view, I mean, what do you view? Because obviously you've been involved with, if you like, working with the university management at Kenyatta University, you've engaged with students, with staff members. So in your perspective, how do you see, what's the importance of the flexibility of this toolkit within Kenyatta University? Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I want to thank you for this symposium, and also thank you for inviting KU into this program. Yes, in terms of flexibility of the online toolkit, I think when we think about context, that's a very important thing because being entrepreneurial is all about context. And so we have to consider about our environment. Where are we? The university as an institution developed policies and goals, but they're based on national goals. And the national goals are also related to the international goals, such as SDGs, national goals, and policies. Well, in Kenya, Vision 2030, and it aims to make Kenya a globally competitive and prosperous country. And so what's very important is when we consider the policies within the institutions, the context is important, we're not in isolation. I just thought I'd give an example of the social pillar within the Vision 2030, and it's talking about the universities collaborating with industry and training entrepreneurs within the context. So whatever we do at the university is very important because the context is important, and we're not in isolation. So whatever we do requires that we also consider what's happening in the country. For example, the economic development within any nation, and especially with emerging economies, it's very important to recognize that some grow, but they're not sustainable. And the reason for this is that you find that in the private sector has not been involved as much in the development. And so we have a situation where universities can reach out to government and industries and private sector and work together so that the economy is actually sustained a long term, where when private sector is involved, they can, and we have inclusive development, they can leverage on the private sector and corporates and individuals to contribute to economic growth. So basically what we're saying is that we need to create opportunities for the private sector to continuously and vigorously innovate, thereby creating firms and products which offer high value propositions. And therefore, and more entrepreneurs are created and they create more firms and value added products. And therefore we can have a sustainable growth in the economy. And so basically, flexibility of the toolkits allows universities to explore public-private partnerships and address the issues, the problems together, and bring in private public partnerships into the development. Another thing is the fact that many of the emerging economies show rapid growth, and which are relatively unstable and often decline in the short term. And this is related to the fact that these economies, such as the Kenyan economy, depend on mono or primary products, such as tea, coffee, oil, and entrepreneurial thinking would help to add value to these products so they can create high value products and firms which can make the economy more resilient and the economic growth less volatile. And so again, this is where the universities, being flexible, can work with the communities to see how we can add value to our products and therefore help to sustain the economy again. And then again, when we look at our students, we know there's a high unemployment amongst the youth, and we know that the youth make up the larger, the majority of the population, and most of them, we know that without jobs, they all want to start businesses, but we know they lack skills, entrepreneurial skills. Yeah. And so it's really, really important that we train them and with entrepreneurial skills, and a flexible toolkit in entrepreneurial thinking allows freedom for innovation and creativity in respect to self-employment of the youth. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the institutional setting. It's very important to consider the settings in terms of the entrepreneurial education. The design and the delivery must consider the characteristics of the institution, such as the culture, the structures, the resources, that would help the entrepreneurship program. So it's so important to consider this as we develop. So a flexible program toolkit allows us to use the resources that we have, optimally, and also recognize our weaknesses and see how we can, we can approach it in terms of partnerships and in any other way. And so we can never really talk of implementing this, this toolkit without considering the institutional factors that we have.
So, Carolyn, I'm going to come back to you afterwards with a follow-on question, because you laid a kind of good foundation with respect to different areas of entry, and ultimately the flexibility of the toolkit allows for those entry points. But let me quickly go to Nosa. So, Nosa, you are actually a lecturer in entrepreneurship. So I find it very interesting in your case, because this is what you teach at university. So if you are going to compare, you've obviously assessed the toolkit and you were also involved in developing it. What do you view as the need or the flexibility of the toolkit in relation to your entrepreneurial module you teach students anyway? How would you compare and contrast that in your view?
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. Two very quick answers. One is learning is evolving. And so I believe the teaching methods too should be evolving like what we have done. So what we are doing is very perfect and is apt. Secondly, context and situation. The context and situation in every institution is different. For example, in the University of Benin, we have more than 12, 15 faculties or colleges. And these colleges and faculties have their peculiarities. And so it is important that teaching toolkits like this also have something that is flexible, that can be unique to each faculty. So that's one of the advantages. And this brings about lots of benefits. For example, it becomes adaptable for every faculty, for every college or institution, as the case may be. And so you find that once it is adaptable, responsiveness is better, there's better learning, it builds confidence, and it also creates a sense of independence by either for the learners, for the teachers, and everyone. So just quickly, it has a lot of benefit, but basically because of context and situation. So we all have our different peculiarities, background, and all of that. So this flexible toolkit will help each institution, faculties, and colleges to be able to deliver on their objectives and goals. Thank you very much.
That's phenomenal. So I think I'll come to you, Charlotte. I know, you are a research scientist, but also a technologist. And I know that CSIR, by reason of your setup, you've been designed to set up or development of new products and services to power the science and innovation space in Ghana. In your view, and obviously you also been involved in developing this toolkit, what stands out for you, Charlotte, with respect to the flexible nature of this toolkit and potentially its potential application in a Ghanaian scenario? Charlotte.
I can, as we said, the CSIR supports the SETS program and the toolbox. We see it as an excellent tool to equip our scientists to turn their research findings into business in Ghana. And one way they did, hello?
Yes,
hello,
I hear you. Yes, I can hear you very clearly. Yes, go on, please.
One were the days when it was published before perish. Unless you publish, you perish. But nowadays, even our promotion criteria has the commercial entity attached to it. You need to get in a commercialized money. So it's everybody is in thinking, because at the end of the day, if you serve the number of years you have served and want to go for promotion, it's not only your publication. So the proposal you are writing or the research work you are doing should be tailored to meet an entrepreneur's need, industrial need. So in that case, our mindset have been changed to not only publishing and keeping it on the shelves, but we see the need to tailor your research work to meet a client's needs, so that at the end of the research, a client will take it up and upscale it, so that
Oh, maybe I think we've lost Charlotte there. But I think I see what you mean. It is about the actualization, because I mean Africa is filled with problems, and there is absolute need for practical solutions to solve those problems, and researchers and scientists play a crucial role in that solution, that process of putting together solutions for actual practical problems. And I think CSIR do an incredible job. So it will be interesting to see the adaptation of the toolkit or its utilization within the CSIR concept. Now I'm going to go to Spencer. Spencer, now you are a professional and you're director of the Climate Change and SDG Center at Igbinedion University. And obviously, because your expertise is in biochemistry and applied sciences, so I'll be willing to know, what is your view of the entrepreneurship toolkit, even though you're an actual physical scientist? Spencer.
Thank you very much, and Dr. Akan. That's interesting. Like the survey that was done, we all agree that it doesn't matter whether you're a scientist or whether you're a non-scientist, teaching entrepreneuriality is the way to go. As a scientist, solving problems is one of the key things that we hope to do, which is a very central aspect of entrepreneurship. Innovativeness is another key area. If within our community, like in Okada here in Nigeria, if we are not able to look at the situation in Okada, the conditions in Okada and the environment, and prefer solutions, we will not be entrepreneurial in nature. So looking at the toolkit and the training, what it can do for us is going to open our eyes to see the opportunities and seize the opportunities and act entrepreneurially. And at the same way, if we're able to do that, like we have the toolkit to tell us, it is more practical than a classroom-based thing. So entrepreneurship is something that is practical. If we're able to imbibe it as scientists and as a biochemist, it has great opportunities for our students that will be coming up. I'll pick, for instance, if we take, for instance, let me take, for instance, sawdust. Sawdust is abundant in Okada. And by the time you look at the abundant nature and the frequent burning of sawdust in Okada, which pollutes the environment and increases the greenhouse gases, you begin to think, what can a biochemist do with this sawdust to reduce its effects on the environment and create an innovative way of making use of sawdust so that it will add value both to the sawmillers and the people that are producing it. In such way, you could begin to look at possible enzymes that could degrade some of the components of the sawdust or utilization of the sawdust for other materials. In that way, it's going to add value and we can become change makers ourselves.
There's an element of context-based and actually identifying local problems on the ground and empowering researchers and scientists to, through entrepreneurial thinking, solve those problems. I think I see a point, a really interesting point. Akim Olowo Layemo said on the chat. He says, since I like this very much, I think it should be a very, very powerful quote, actually. Joanne, I think you agree with me. It says, since you can't give what you don't have, academics themselves need entrepreneurial training to be competent enough to train their students, especially how to focus their teaching and assessments and even research towards entrepreneurship. I think that is absolutely powerful. Now I'll come back to the panelists and a round of questions. And the question is this. So now we have a toolkit, okay, it's ready. Obviously the toolkit is continually being worked on, that it will continue to grow. The question now is, How do you intend to roll this out? Is there a process? Is there a system to roll out this toolkit in your institutions? Emmanuel, I'll come back to you. What's your view, sir?
All right, I think that's a very good question. And interestingly, fortunately, Lancaster University Ghana is moving to a purpose-built campus. You know that we've been operating in the mall for some time.
That's true.
By the next academic year, we are moving into a new campus. And so I think one of the things that we have done, and we are going through a re-accreditation with our National Accreditation Board, we are looking at, we've not had an entrepreneurship pathway in our curriculum, even though sometimes it's taken as a model. So we have the accounting and finance pathway, we have the marketing, the management. I think that's become imperative that we look at the entrepreneurship pathway. So that, exactly, so we are considering that very much. We are also looking at building concepts like the entrepreneurship in residence, which is something that is thriving in Lancaster, and we are going to, in the development of the purpose-built campus, I have made a strong case for the development of a place where we can get these thought people so that we can collaborate with them, academia, industry, scientists. We can meet on campus and share ideas. I think another important thing.
Go on. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
okay. So our students also, on the student front, we are looking at having those entrepreneurship groups on campus where the students will hone the entrepreneurship idea. In fact, we are thinking of having an incubation center on campus, where students who have entrepreneurial skills and knowledges and things that they want to build, the entrepreneurs in residence will be available to them. Faculty will be available to them as students. And they, the students themselves, we realized that some of them have, have little businesses on their sides and entrepreneurial thinkings on their side. We want them to have that effect on their colleagues. So then we can have this meetings with them, there's discussions with them. In fact, fortunately, where we are going, there's a biodigester, which we have not had. We are looking at students using the segregation of waste as an opportunity to generate businesses. So these are little things that we as a university, we are looking at doing subsequently when we get our campus. So those are some of the things that we want to do.
That's phenomenal. And just to clarify for those people who don't know, so when you mean entrepreneur in residence, you mean like actual entrepreneurs in industry, you host them on campus to interact with researchers, support students, I think that's fantastic.
Exactly. That's what we intend to do. Exactly. Yeah.
So Carolyn, how about you? I mean, because you had a very top leadership center at Kenyatta University. How do you see the systematic rollout or adaptation of the toolkit for your institution? Very briefly, yeah.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we plan to disseminate the sets to management and the deans and some of the and some of them participated in the survey, so they have been supported. And then we want to actually now adapt the toolkit to our institution. Fantastic. And so we already have the team who were recruited for the questionnaires, and we want to work together to develop the toolkit, to fit Kenyatta University. We will also call in other stakeholders, some members from the School of Business, Chandari, relevant departments, depending on as we develop the course. Initially, what we plan, and then once we have adapted the program to KU, we're planning to pilot it. We'd like to pilot it, the toolkit, first to see, how it is. And then after that, we're hoping to launch the program. So we're saying possibly between June and August, we will do the piloting and the program. And then we hope maybe between September and December to roll it out, actually. And the piloting will be among staff. And we want them to be entrepreneurial first. and then, before they reach out to their students. Yes. And then when we do launch it out, we can also include, actually, staff who are also students, so they could be doing their PhD as well. And so we want to roll it out first and see how it, the uptake goes. And then subsequently, we're saying eventually we will consider it as a postgraduate course. Yeah, once we have, rolled it out, because it gives us time to evaluate the program and see how we can, improve it, develop case studies.
Yes.
Yeah. So really adopting it.
I think it's a very well thought through plan. So first of all, engagement with management, and then systematically engaging the rollout of a pilot on campus to your staff members, then systematically engaging PhD students and master's degree students or postgraduate students, and ultimately once it's set up in place, then it opens up an opportunity for maybe a postgraduate training or a module or program mandatory to all. I think that's fantastic. So Nosa, how about you? I know we've been in conversations around the design or the adaptation of this program in University of Benin. What's your view based on your conversations so far? Yes, we can hear you, Nosa. Go on.
Okay, thank you very much, Akan. Two set of people come to mind for my rollout. First of all, we're talking about two focus group here, the students and then the staff. For the students, it's going to be quite an easy road, because in University of Benin presently, there's a program called CED 300. CED is actually the Center for Entrepreneurship Development. So every student, at least the undergraduate students of University of Benin at their penultimate year, are made to undertake that entrepreneurship course. But although that course needs to be developed and enhanced, so that is where I plan to collaborate with the director of the center. So I plan to meet with him and see how we can collaborate on this teaching tool to enhance their teaching methods, and probably identify those lecturers who teach the science-based students in particular, the set students in particular, and then probably focus on those students. And then for the staff, fortunately, I was part of those who developed this program, and during the interview course and all of that, I met with a lot of deans and directors. So some of them were very interested in this program, and so they are ready to already accept whatever it is that we have to offer and run with it. And so that's also going to be easy. So there plans to be, I'm looking at organizing a seminar or workshop for the staff, probably starting with the deans and all of that. So it's going so that it cannot flow down from the top, from the head down and all of that. So those are some of the approaches I'm going to be using. And then in all of this process, I've discovered that the university has a used resources that it can use, the PG students. And somebody mentioned that earlier. So University of Benin, I think that has not been focused upon. So we plan to bring them into this picture using the deans and the directors and these PG supervisors, the postgraduate supervisors. We can organize seminars for them, workshops and all of that. And so with this, we can help roll out this thing gradually. And it's going to be in phases in the short term, medium term, and also in the long term. So those are some of the activities already planned that we're going to use for this rollout.
You just spoke about the fact that actually all 300 level students at University of Benin have to mandatorily take this Center for Entrepreneurship Department program. And so integrating or aligning that program with the SET online program, especially because I would imagine the program currently being delivered at University of Benin must be face-to-face, I would imagine. But ultimately in a COVID era, there is need for thinking about a digital environment of making programs available to students and even staff members. I think that's fantastic. So I'm going to go to you, Charlotte. Charlotte, from a CSIR perspective, what is your view of what an engagement strategy might be in the program rollout? Charlotte.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you very much. As part of the SET program, we have organized trainings for research scientists, technologists, and technical officers, and even the commercial units. You know, in food research, you have a commercial division, which serves as a form of a liaison between the outside world and the research scientists. And for this year, we have rolled out a series of programs where we are training outsiders. You pay a fee and we transfer our technologies to you. And for the past months, we've organized about 5 trainings, and we have more to organize. Just in a bit to get some resources and transfer our technologies to the end users. So that is one. And apart from that, we need to incorporate our entrepreneurial thinking in our proposals. So there in your proposals, you know that at the end of the day, you are targeting this technology to an end user where it will be upskilled so that you get the resources needed to help the institute. So these are some of the rollout that I think we can use the SET program to. For us, we are at an advantage because we've gone through the SET trainings, and we've also trained our employees, and so they are aware. Everybody is commercial inclined. Thank you.
You know, Charlotte, that's very, very interesting, because I know for the fact that I was actually involved with the physical SET training, and your institute was the host of a physical one. So it will be interesting to see how you move that onto the digital and online environment, especially in a COVID/post-COVID era, to make the program available to staff, your students, and also to your partners. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come to you now, Spencer, because maybe it's the last person on the panel. So, and the question is, for you, it's a bit different, because I was actually involved literally a few days ago in you organizing a pilot of your institution's SET program. So that means you've already used the toolkit. I want to know, how did you find the use of the toolkit itself to design the program you hosted 2 days ago, and how do you see its escalation throughout the university? Spencer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akan. I want to use this opportunity to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Lawrence Ikechukwu, and the management team, who deemed it fit to take immediate action to launch the toolkit for use in Igbinedion University, Okada. As a matter of fact, it wasn't too difficult for us, because on ground before now, we had entrepreneurial studies for students, where students in 200 level and 300 level, irrespective of their discipline, must pass through entrepreneurial program as these 2 levels. So what the SET tools did for us is that it enhanced the digital component of that program. Like you notice in that program, even the key players in those programs were able to tell us how they engaged key entrepreneurs in the training of these students. So the tools was used in step by step to develop our own program. And we're going to go further, because the training goes beyond science and non-science oriented individuals.
That's true.
We are going to modify it further, because we will weigh the merits and the demerits because of the flexibility of the tools, and see how we can adapt it. And we plan to grow it, domesticate it, so that it will domesticate it, so that it will be kind of ownership that will help it to be sustainable in the future. Because once it is domesticated by units and departments in the university, they own it, they claim ownership of it, and once they own it, we know it can be sustainable.
Can drive it. I think that's cool. So that's really, really powerful. Now I think I'm looking forward to it. And by the way, I'm not giving you too much work, but it feels like you should get ready, because you're going to be supporting, I believe, other institutions in terms of their own rollout strategy for their own adaptation of the SET toolkit. So I'm looking forward to engaging further on that. And just to kind of open it up for, if you're on the call and you are in any institution, please be aware that it is very easy and it's actually free. You can engage with us or to get access to the toolkit, and you can also develop that toolkit, adapt it to your own institutions to develop a program to help your own researchers and staff members and academics to start thinking entrepreneurially. That is open to every institution on the call. And I think, as a matter of fact, to get more information, if you look at the chat section, there is actually an official SET web page. Now, that web page will continually get developed, but I think right now you can get access to the key information you need to be able to engage. So that web page link has been posted on the chat section. Now, we're wrapping up now. But to wrap this up, I want to interact with the audience again, maybe one last time, before I call on Keck to give us a closing remark. And it's maybe through a series of final Mentimeter questions to get a sense of the room very quickly, and we can wrap it up. So, Alan, can you please put those links? So if you look at the link in the chat, we're going to run through a series of very quick questions to get your feeling of the things you've heard the speakers and panelists speak about from different universities and different countries, and your perspective view on those. Again, the first question is this. In your view, when would you like to start SETS training within your own institution? Within the next month, the next 2 months, or the next year? What's your view? What are you saying? What do you think? I can imagine if you are here, you might maybe want to engage with your institutional leads to be able to make this happen. But I think we would like to get a sense of the room in terms of interest, how people would like to engage. So when would you like to start the SETS training within your institution? And don't forget, the SETS Toolkit is made available to all institutions, as long as you are able to request for it to adapt it to your own scenario. So this is interesting. Please keep voting just to get a sense of the room. So when would you like to start the SETS training within your own institution? So it feels like nobody wants to wait for a year, which I think, Joanne, what's your view on this? I think this is fantastic. So nobody wants to wait for 1 year. People want to get going as soon as possible. Joanne?
Absolutely, please do. And we're here as well to support, and other institutions are there to support. So yeah, it's really good to hear.
It's really good to say. So I think there's a sense that people want to get going right away as soon as possible. So please, for information on how to reach us, on how to engage with access to the toolkit, go to the website as put on the chat section. So I think we can move to the next question quickly. We can move to the next question now. The next question is, so the question is, what is an open question really? What additional support would you or might you require to set up the SETS toolkit in your institution? So just maybe a short response, a phrase, a word will be fine, just to get a feel for the room. What additional support might you or would you require to set up the SETS toolkit in your institution? So please, if you click on that question, you could please respond. It's an open question. Thank you. So what are people saying? I think it's probably loading up. So some people require some administrative support. I think we can actually advise on how to get those kind of support systems within your institution. Okay, a pilot session sounds really good. And interestingly, the SETS toolkit begins with a pilot session because a simple trial would always work to get a feel as to the adaptability of a toolkit. Materials for training. So you might be happy to know that on the website, we will be loading up a series of case study files, PowerPoint presentations, videos, and films all around this toolkit, so which you can tap into and use to develop your own training. Those will be available and they will be free of charge, okay? As long as you are able to register for it. And if you want support, so people are talking about technical training that is available, introductory PowerPoint, that is also available. We are actually giving access to that. Promotion of the toolkit. So as a matter of fact, if you wanted us to help you in terms of designing or to support you in designing a promotional video of some sort for your institution, we also have some support system that can also help with that as much as possible. So people are requiring materials, cost implication info. Well, for now, I have to be honest with you, there is no actual cost attached to it. The toolkit has been designed and it's made available for people who want access at no cost. Ultimately, we can have a discussion with respect to potential partnership in its rollout and further expansion. But as of now, the toolkit will be made available to you at no cost, as long as you can register for it. So I think that's really good to say. I think most of these support systems we can help and support with, which is fantastic to see. Next question, please. Thank you. Okay, it's a very simple one. So what your institution requires support from the team of SETS pilot institutions set up a program. So for example, Kenyatta University are a pilot institution and a partner. CSIR in Ghana are a pilot partner on the SETS Toolkit. University of Benin in Nigeria, Igbinedion University in Nigeria, and also Lancaster University, Ghana are all pilot institutions. So the room is feeling that they will require some kind of support from these pilot institutions who have gone through the process already. And I'm happy to inform you that everybody, all the partner institutions are happy to support you in your own setup, because you can learn from them based on what they've gone through so far. That's beautiful. Next question, please. Okay, so obviously, I think we can move to the next one, because that's been covered in the previous question. So it's administrative support, access to materials, and so on. Good. So the question is, would you be interested in sharing your experiences of running a SES program for your institution? The reason why this is important is we are developing a repository of resources, and this collation, this resources bank will keep growing. So because as you develop your own SETS program, your institution, and roll it out, your learnings, your experiences, your case studies, we would like you to share those so we can populate them on the resources or the toolkit or on the bank, so other partners can have a huge base of where to tap from to increase their own delivery. So I say thank you very much for showing some good interest in sharing your experiences of the toolkit being run in your institution. Okay, I think we can move to the last question now. Fantastic. Okay. And it's and the question is quite straightforward, and it's how best would you learn? So imagine you are a researcher, an academic. I think the question is, how best would you learn? And this is important for us to get a feel as to the ratio of the use of a toolkit or its application. So the question is, how best would you learn about being entrepreneurial as a scientist, an academic, or a researcher? It's the last question, and we can call it a day. So I'm just looking at the chart. So please keep voting so we can have a sense of the room. So Akim is saying that in my university, we approach this issue from two critical steps. We develop a year one, that's under-level course, compulsory for all year one students on the SDGs, and almost all lecturers are involved. Then level two, we develop an entrepreneurship course for all year three students. I think that's a phenomenal strategy. And maybe if folks in the room can look at this, I think that might be a good strategy to adapt for your institution. So at year one, it's a mandatory course around the SDGs, and at year three, it's a mandatory course on entrepreneurship. So Akim, we'll be happy to speak with you if you left us a message with respect to how we might partner with you to help in respect to the SETS toolkit in your institution. I think that's fantastic. Joanne is saying, please type, so Joanne is saying, please type into the chat the types of support that you would like, and also take ideas of what might work in your institutions for collaboration. So there seems to be a preference to actually run entrepreneurship projects, and I'm inclined to agree. You might learn from hearing case studies, you might learn from undertaking training, but there is nothing as powerful as learning from running actual entrepreneurship projects itself. And we've also covered this in the toolkit. So how can you design an entrepreneurship project within your institutions? What are the key things to think about in that design pathway? And that's fantastic. So I think we can probably call it off now. Thanks for the interactions on the chat. It's been very fascinating and refreshing to see. I want to appreciate the British Council. Thank you, Liz, for stopping by and for your presentation. Thank you to the panelists, Emmanuel, Nosa, Spencer, Charlotte, and Carolyn for stopping by, and also for your contribution and your perspectives on your institutional leverages on the sales toolkit. Absolute thanks to Joanne and Anthony for being incredible and spending the last 3 to 4 months working with partners on this toolkit. It's been an absolute incredible experience. And so I want to hand over to Kirk for closing remarks, and we can call it a day. Over to you, Kirk.
Thanks very much, Akan, and thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. This is all very, very useful and helpful in moving the project forward. So, I mean, I've been blown away listening to the contributions from everyone. But before I sort of rumble on, I'd just like to thank the British Council for financially supporting this project. Without it, we wouldn't have developed anything as quickly as we have done. I mean, this has been a high intensity, short timescale project, and for that, I would like to thank the entire team across the four countries and the partners therein for the hard work that they brought to bear on this. And obviously, I'd like to thank ACAN as well for not only facilitating this this workshop, but also in terms of being a fantastic bringer together of people as well to make this happen. I think by his own admission, this has been really enjoyable, but very, very hard work as well. So thanks to everyone. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect from this webinar. I have to say that I'm extremely excited, enthused, and very happy, which is unusual for a dour Scotsman to be. But listening to the contributions from partners in Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya, it's clear that things are happening. And that's brilliant. I mean, you can go through a project and finish, and then it stops and you move on to the next thing. But it's clear to me that there is longevity in this, not only with the partners that we work with, but also new partners that will hopefully come on board as a result of our activities, and the offer of material and support to help that as well. And for me, that's absolutely crucial, and what it shows that it's actually has the massive potential to engender real change from a relatively small, although albeit intensive and high intensity project, that we can get to a place that's actually useful for people. So please use it. Please engage with us. We're here to help and support, and I'm talking about that, of course, across the entire project team, not just us at Lancaster, of course. And please let us know how you get on. That's really, really important. We want to hear the feedback. If you take this on, let us know how it's going on. And what's been good about it, some of the challenges that you've faced, and how you've overcome those challenges as well. So I think I've rambled on enough. So I'd just like to thank everybody for their participation. I hope you found it enjoyable and interesting, and I look forward to speaking to you and meeting with you as situations evolve in the very near future. So thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
So just before everybody goes, I wonder. I mean, I didn't prep Liz for this, but I know she's still on the call. If she is, I wonder if Liz, you had any comments to give before we wrap up the session, from your perspective as obviously the funder of the program. What's your view on? I mean, it'd be nice for us to hear this, and probably I can wrap it up. So over to you, Liz. I'm sorry for putting you on.
No, not at all. Thank you for that, Akan. I've just written a very short comment in the chat function, but just to say, I think I've just found this so very inspiring. I think that the enthusiasm for such a toolkit is really very clear, and I think moving forward, I think there are lots of opportunities to work together, and I really look forward to hearing about that, to seeing that happen. If there's anything more that we can do as British Council, we really would like to be part of this as well. And I just think fabulous piece of work. And yes, it's been great. It's been a really informative session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. That's absolutely fantastic. And thanks to the team. And I can tell you now, Kek will know this, I haven't slept for 4 months. So after this call, I'm going to sleep all day. So don't talk to me or send me any messages. So thank you everybody for an incredible session, and you've been absolutely fantastic. And please engage. You can use the toolkit. It's open to everybody, universities, colleges, doesn't matter. The design of the toolkit makes it applicable for your own use. On that note, have a gorgeous week and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Akan. Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.